Great. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for joining us for this month's Customer Success Departmental webinar. We always try to pick topics that we find that we hope that you find support you in your role with your board. And so thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. So a few just intro comments here at the beginning. My name is Emily Reynolds. I'm a Customer Success Manager here with OnBoard. I have a number of industries that I support, including healthcare, government, and technology. I also have on the call Joe Bauer, who's an implementation manager. And you want to say hi, Joe?
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. I couldn't help myself. I definitely checked the participants list to see if any of the people that I've been working with in implementation were on the list. I did see a couple familiar names. So for those of you who have already been working with me, thanks so much for joining. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm really excited about this topic. So thanks, like Emily said, for taking some time out of what I'm sure is a very busy schedule to join us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then we also have Gina, who is also an implementation here as well. Gina's going to be helping us with question and answer as we go on. So we are your team for the webinar today. So just some housekeeping items is we're going to be hitting some really practical topics today to help you with creating your best board. We're going to chat about recruitment, training your board, and retaining your board. At the end, we will have a wrap up and question answer point in time. So everyone is muted here to start off with. And actually the whole webinar, everyone will be muted, but we would love to hear from you, any questions that come to mind. So feel free to ask us throughout the webinar in the chat function. Gina's going to be handling those, and she will bring up relevant questions at the end. Also, we'll pass on any relevant questions to your customer success manager or implementation manager, should they be able to help you with something specific that you might want to connect about. Also, feel free to raise your hand if you need anything, and Gina can get in touch with you there as well. Okay, so such an important topic today. It's almost hard to overstate the importance of the composition of your board. So again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to just chat a little bit more about this, and we recognize that you also feel the importance of this, and so looking forward to giving you some practicals about that. So given the tremendous responsibility and decision-making power of boards, also with the length of most board members' tenures, making sure that you have the right composition of leaders on your board is absolutely fundamental, and so much importance to your organization. So without having the right people around the table, it's difficult for any board to provide effective leadership. And the goal for a healthy board is to be a strong, high-functioning work group whose members trust and challenge one another, and also engage directly with senior managers on critical issues facing the organization. So a strategic board will perform at a much higher level than boards that get caught up in management and operations. So a key difference here is a strategic board is much more going to be forward-facing, looking at the long-term strategy. And then boards that are more focusing or more spending time on management operation tend to be a shorter-term functioning board with a shorter-term view. So our goal is to talk about what constitutes the supportive, strategic, long-term focused board today. Okay, so again, we'll be chatting about three main parts to support this. We'll mostly be just talking about some thoughts to help you strategically in these areas, but then we're also, Joe's gonna follow up each one of these to let you know how you can support each one of these initiatives within OnBoard as well. So we'll be talking about recruiting, ensuring a funnel of high quality leadership is available to you as a resource to take part in your board. We'll also talk about training, how to help you develop strategies to orient all of your board members to their role, and then retraining, keeping your productive members active in your organization. Okay, so first of all, we'll talk about recruiting. So this is actually probably the most robust of the three that we're going to touch on today. Recruitment and development strategies, that it's important for them to ensure a funnel of high quality candidates for your organization. So some intentional representation that are good for every board to consider to have are the skill sets that are needed, leadership styles, and diversity of thought and background. So a good way to start to be intentional around these is to work with a board matrix. This can be an inventory of all the perspectives, skill sets, and leadership characteristics that are needed for the board overall. And it can give you a snapshot of where you are, where there are gaps, and also as you look at your goals in the future, what you might want to fill. So in preparing for this, there's a lot of different, I know there's various industries that use OnBoard and that we support. And so this can definitely vary from industry to industry of what type of skill sets, leadership styles, and even diversity that you might want to be representing depending upon your organization. Just want to recognize that these can be unique to your organization, while at the same time, just giving you some ideas of how you can look at your needs with this. So the inventory it includes having also a thoughtful discussion of whether or not the board reflects the diversity of the community it serves, and if not, the signal that sends to the external world about what your organization is and what it values. So there's also a caution from using a checklist approach to board recruitment, especially when it comes to board diversity, because no candidate really should be reduced to a demographic profile. And it is wise to just holistically think about the multifaceted leadership profiles that value diversity within the context of your leadership needs. So some thoughts around that about increasing the diversity of your board is just even some initial steps in your board, talking about why do we need to become more diverse and how might we do that. So those could be some good first steps if that is a direction that you want to head in adding to your board. Many board members already understand that a homogeneous board can result in nearsightedness and groupthink, but in a contrast to that, a heterogeneous group composed of individuals with a variety of skills, perspectives, and backgrounds can promote creativity and innovation, and it yields to differing voices, which can really support the effectiveness of your organization and the strategic brainstorming looking ahead. So if you are looking to really add to your organization in an area where you might be weaker in either diversity or skill sets or leadership skills, you might need to go on, if your board recruiting strategy is pretty organic and relational, you might need to go beyond that. So some additional pipelines of candidates you might consider would be a local chamber of commerce, members of other nonprofit boards, community leaders, clients or customers, professional, trade, or fraternal associations, organizations representing various racial or ethnic groups, local colleges and universities, MBA programs, executive leadership programs. There's also a resource for female board members called theboardlist.com. Okay. So on that note, I would love to hear from everyone in our first poll question. Do you currently use a skills checklist or a matrix for your board today? So just a simple no or yes, it is part of our recruitment of activities. Would love to hear just the level of how much those of you in the audience are already doing something like this. Which is great. We have a lot of people responding. Mm-hmm. Awesome. It looks pretty mixed, actually, about half and half. Okay, great. So it's really actually pretty much right in the middle, but hopefully this can be helpful, especially for those of you that maybe have never done this, of some ideas what could be a good fit for your organization with a matrix. And then for those of you that are using it, maybe even just brainstorming any additional ways that it could serve your needs. Okay. I'll go ahead and, what is that? Okay, so as you are dealing with recruiting top talent, one thing that is so common. If you ask a board member how they became part of a board that they're a part of, they might just say something like, oh, the board chair just asked me and I said yes, or someone else on the board, which, you know, networking and relationships, there's absolutely value in that. However, at the same time, creating an intentional board with people that are really engaged, there's a lot that can be said for an interview process to help down the line in this part. So things that you probably want to avoid in these kind of conversations would be disclaimer type comments like that. Oh, the time commitment's not that hard. It's not that bad. We don't meet a lot. And a lot of times you can phone in, or we have a lot of fun, which is great to have fun. It's great to have fun, but you, of course you want people that are motivated to contribute as well. So here's some interview questions that can really support bringing in some intentional people. Would be things like, what do you know about our organization? Why are you interested in committing your time and energy to us? What do you think are the characteristics of a great board member? Board members bring experience, wisdom, strategic thinking, and their Rolodexes. Can you tell us about yours? What kind of autonomy do you have over your calendar? And then one that we are huge fans of are asking them about using the board portal service OnBoard and the interview process. Are you willing to access a board portal for meeting materials and board workflow processes? So this is a great one because I have a lot of customers that are super eager to use OnBoard. But if not everyone is willing to use it, then it does create more work for the admin, and it can limit the group if there's some people that aren't very keen on logging in to vote on something, for example. Then it's hard to host that whole vote for the whole group, of course, within OnBoard if there's some people that are reluctant to do that. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe at this point to talk about how this can be handled within the portal. I'm sorry, some of the recruitment processes.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Emily. I appreciate it. So here we see kind of a creative use of the dashboard to help with your recruiting efforts. I'm sure that for many of you, at least some of your board members may have joined due to personal referrals from existing members. So especially if you have people that are term limited and you know that a certain group of people is going to be rolling off the board at a scheduled time, maybe in the past you've sent out an email to folks to say, hey, you know, it's recruiting time. We need to replace a few members. They're going to be rolling off in the next few months. Let us know if you have anybody in mind, any like-minded individuals that would be a great fit here. But that can be done by scheduling an announcement to go out through the dashboard from OnBoard. The benefits here are, first of all, that you get to engage with all of your people directly through the OnBoard platform. And I know for a lot of the admins that I work with, especially as they're first getting started, and I'm asking you about what your goals are, one of the things that I hear over and over and over is that you want to see engagement numbers being really high. And one of the best ways to get those high engagement numbers that you're looking for is to make the OnBoard platform as sticky as you possibly can. So instead of just sending out an email to your people to say, hey, by the way, you know, we need to replace some board members in the coming months, why not send out an announcement? That's a great way to not only achieve your goal of recruiting talent and leveraging the networks of the people that you still have on your board of directors, but also ensuring that those engagement numbers stay high. So once we've recruited everybody, that's when we kind of move on to the next phase of making sure that we're intentionally building our best board, and that involves training the people that we're bringing on as newcomers. And Emily, I know you had some more thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Joe. So yes, a key strategy is for organizations to have really your strategy in place to orient all board members to their role and to the unique characteristics and expectations of the group and the vision of the organization. The reason this is so important is to create a culture that values and supports the framework for this strategic decision making. So this kind of culture really is created so that as people join, that those that are ready to contribute and ready to have strategic discussions and brainstorming, that there's a culture that is welcome and there's a space for that. It's also going to improve sustainability as an organization's board members come and go. Establishing these business processes will help survive, help to make this kind of culture survive. Okay, so we have our second poll question. How many of you currently have an onboarding process for your new board members? Okay, so we have three answers here. One, we have a process of meeting with new board members for orientation and training. Two, we have a packet we give or email them. Or three, we don't have a formal process, but just get people up to speed as they join. It's great, different people are voting, which is great. It's great. A number of you already do have a process that is instated, it looks like, for orientation and training. Some people giving out printed email, giving out packets, either handed out or emailed, and then some people just doing it informally. So anyway, thanks for responding to that. Hopefully, no matter where you're at, you'll find some value in some information about this. So there's actually there's actually a great way that you can display some of this information in OnBoard, which Joe's going to show us in a second. But some information you might want to consider putting in part of your welcome packet is a welcome letter from the president or the CEO. Making sure that your mission statement is clear there and accessible. Sharing the expectations and the culture of the group, the organizational structure of the board. Also, it's a great place to put the intro information to OnBoard. To onboard the software for them to understand that's being used, and just for a little intro there. It's another great place to put compliance items like meeting laws, conflict of interest. It's also a good place where you put intros to people already within the board, president, treasurer, vice chair, and etc. So Joe, you want to chat about how OnBoard can be used for this?
Sure, yeah, I'd love to. So here's yet another creative use of the OnBoard platform, where last time we talked about how you could utilize the dashboard as part of your recruiting efforts. This is sort of a picture that shows you how you could use the calendar tab as part of your training efforts. So Emily mentioned, you can definitely put together some materials here for new members. I saw this and I thought, why didn't I think of this? Because I always think of the calendar tab just purely in terms of meetings. I didn't necessarily think of it in terms of just, this is a great way to distribute information, regardless of whether there's a formal meeting associated with it or not. And I thought those poll results were so interesting that it looked like we had very few users that don't really have any sort of a formalized process, but just sort of, get people up to speed in any manner that they see fit. But this is a great opportunity maybe to start to formalize some of those things that informally everyone internally really knows. Here's the information that we need to get to all of our new people. Well, why not compile those things? Put it into sort of a welcome packet like we see here, because for those of you who are already familiar with the OnBoard platform, you understand that when you're creating a meeting, you create your agenda sections, you upload your documents, and all of those things get compiled into one easy to digest form. Well, that's a great way to compile information, to put together a welcome packet for your new members. And again, I can't believe I hadn't thought of this. I'm definitely going to start mentioning that during all of my future implementations, but that's one of the many things that I love so much about my team, that when this idea came up, I was like, man, that's really good stuff. So yeah, I know once we're kind of to this point now where we've used OnBoard to recruit our members, now perhaps we're using OnBoard to train up our members, and we get them kind of over the hump where they've joined the ranks, we're getting them pretty comfortable with the internal processes. Now it's time to start thinking about how we're going to retain our very best people and make sure that they are happy and contributing throughout their entire tenure as board members. And Emily, I know you had a lot to say about that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So individuals will agree to join boards for so many different reasons, but what most have in common is a commitment or a passion for the purpose of your organization. So a lot of times they have a certain vision of joining a board, of what they want to contribute. They might want to see services improved, users of services more satisfied, expanded services, or resources that are utilized more efficient, that type of thing. So they're hoping that their experience and position in the community and their analytical skills or experience can lead to better decision making or better supported decisions. So they judge their value to the organization on whether or not they feel as if they've contributed to changes in these ways. Often they're underwhelmed by the results and ultimately leave the board seeking an opportunity to make better use of the time that they're contributing. In the board member's mind, the equation is, if the organization is not better because I am here, then I am going to do something else where I can make a difference. So obviously that would be what we want to avoid. So here are some practicals and some tips about some factors that contribute to poor retention versus factors that will help improve retention. So as you see on the slide that we have provided, here's some things that you can consider making a part of every meeting as an appeal to emotions. This could be just involving your vision statement into the items that are talked about in that specific meeting, or having anecdotal stories that have happened since the last board meeting that might pertain to the vision statement. Also having an element of fun, making sure that those meetings are run efficiently. Again, that the processes are more strategic, long-term focused and not just on administrative or short-term operations. Also offering regular training and always providing food. I know that helps me attend meetings. So some main factors that are cited in leading to poor retention would be a lack of board member orientation, a lack of board training, lack of tools, poor board packets, and poor communications in the board. So I feel like a common characteristic of all those is just they all reduce the effectiveness of the meeting and then therefore the individual spending the time there. Some strategies to improve retention in your meetings is to invite your members to evaluate every meeting. Asking questions like, how do you think that the meeting went? What important things did we not get to cover in this meeting? And what suggestions would you have to improve our meetings in the future? So having a regular practice of asking that can really just make sure that their voice is heard. And plus, a lot of them probably have great feedback if you're not already capturing that already. Another type of feedback you can ask is just some questions surrounding the board member level of satisfaction with their involvement. Another tool to improve retention is to make sure that you have the tools for effective governance present. And I think this is where, as your customer success managers and implementation managers, we get really excited because there's so many features that are available to you in OnBoard. We realize that every organization has unique workflows and unique needs. And so our job is we want to help to maximize your organization's needs to take advantage of the features that are available to you within OnBoard. So I know all of us are very excited when any of our customers invite us into that conversation. So please let us know how we can help you with that. And also, as people are leaving, there's a few opportunities that we hope that you would capture. First of all, exit interviews can be a great way to further assess your progress and identify areas where you can improve. And then lastly, they're being inventive about ways to keep people, productive members, attached to the organization once their tenure might be over. So those contributors that you love having around, maybe they could be on an advisory council or a specific assignment with fundraising activities for those of you that might be nonprofits and have such a thing, and for volunteer activities. You also might consider asking outstanding members to rejoin the board after taking a sabbatical year after their last term. So we have our last poll question here about how do you capture and manage board term limits today? So this actually is coming from our product development standpoint. Is we are curious how you do this today and how we might consider supporting you with this within the software. So your choices here are in the biography section of the OnBoard user profile, an Excel or other spreadsheet tool, a third-party term management software you do not have term limits, and also other. Okay, looks like a lot of people are using spreadsheets,
Mhm.
which makes sense. Some people in their profile, some people, of course, don't have term limits. If you have something interesting to share with us, the others, please feel free to put it in the comments. We'd love to hear anything significant that's working for you about where you're storing that information. Okay, so I am going to now pass this back to Joe to talk about how to handle these some of these initiatives within OnBoard.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. I think some of the things that you touched on are such great points when it comes to keeping your board members happy and therefore keeping those retention numbers as high as possible. Especially when I heard you talk about appealing to emotions. I always felt like, you know, if we're talking about keeping people happy, that in and of itself is an emotion. So if we're going to
That's
ask
true.
about how emotionally do you feel about the board, you know, do you feel connected? Do you feel that you're really contributing? And then also, who wants to feel like their time is being wasted? So when the second point that you made about keeping those retention numbers as high as possible was related to running efficient meetings and making sure that people feel that the time that they're spending in their board meetings is actually time well spent. But the thing with both of these is you can make some assumptions on how you think your board member would respond to these questions, but you can't know for sure unless you ask. So especially for our customers who maybe have our governance package, that does include a simple survey tool. So you can see that we've sort of got an image here of how, to Emily's point, you don't have to do this once a year. You don't have to do it, you know, without any level of frequency. You could do this after every meeting if you wanted to ask people questions. They're tailored to the content that you just discussed, just making sure that you're not assuming that everybody is happy and then all of a sudden being surprised by somebody's departure. So making sure that we're asking these important questions. Now, finally, the other thing that Emily mentioned as well was the training component, that a lot of people that leave boards abruptly or feel that they're not really contributing or that they're not being heard, oftentimes that's due to a lack of training. Certainly there's an internal component there, but obviously that's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, being an implementation. So please reach out to your implementation managers, reach out to your customer success managers, see if there's any sort of a training component that you can offload onto us. We're happy to help with those things. So if there's anything that we can do to help you with training your people, that's what we're here for. So don't be strangers, definitely reach out anytime.
Awesome. Great. Well, yeah. So in summary, the way to attract and retain good board members is to provide them the training, the tools, and the knowledge to add real value to their organization, and have a process to monitor whether or not they feel like if they are adding real value and then implementing improvements as needed. So anyway, we hope that these practicals for recruitment and training and retention to support these feel helpful and supportive, as well as how you can do them in OnBoard. And we'd love to, at this point, open it up to any questions and answers. So if you have a question you have not already submitted, we invite you to do that in the chat function, and Gina is going to help facilitate that. And at this point, I'll ask Gina, do you have any questions that we can help answer?
Yeah, Emily, thank you. We had Karen asked how you would make the welcome orientation to stay in the meetings section on the dashboard.
It's a good question. It's a good practical question. Joe, you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. No, I definitely had some thoughts. I saw that this question came through. So thanks for submitting your question, Karen. We always appreciate that. The first thing that came to mind when I saw your question was just that you would have your kind of welcome meeting that stays in your calendar assigned to whichever date would make most sense. Hopefully this isn't due to an unexpected recruitment where you have somebody brand new to replace an unexpected departure. But if it was around a scheduled time of year where you know that, let's say, a quarter of your board members are going to be rolling off and therefore you're going to be replacing those folks, you could put together your welcome packet. And then my first thought was, as soon as you add those new people in the directory, you could create a new group that's called New Board Members 2020, for example. And then what you could do is take the meeting that you've already created. Maybe you would have to grab it from your past meeting section, for example, but just simply assign that a new date, go to the spot where it says manage attendees to determine who needs to be attending, remove any people that you had in there previously, and then add the group that you created from the directory called New People from 2020. At that point, once you had reassigned the date, it would move over from the past meeting section into the upcoming meeting section. And for all of your brand new users who are logging into OnBoard potentially for the first time, they would see that right there on the dashboard under upcoming meetings. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Karen?
No, I haven't heard back from Karen yet.
Okay.
She hasn't responded. We do have a contribution from Laura. She said that they use the resource section to post a welcome package.
Oh, great idea.
Yeah, that's a great place to do it.
Mm-hmm. And that's another, I would think that at that point, what you could also do with your welcome package in the resources section is just managing the permissions on that to determine who gets to see that folder when they initially log in. And maybe for your folks that have already been with the organization for a year or two, maybe you could take away their permissions from it if that's not something that they would get much value out of. But then making sure that that's always being made available to your brand new people. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and Jennifer had also said that she sees us likely making onboarding information as one of the resources in the resource library. So that's great. We also have Karen responding. She wanted to know, yes, but is there a way to have the welcome orientation stay in the upcoming meetings section, moving it into the past meetings?
Oh, I see what you're saying now, Karen. That makes sense. So one of the things that I usually suggest to my brand new people as they're creating templates for their meetings so that they don't have to go grab those from the past meeting section every time they want to schedule one of their new meetings is I usually tell people just assign it a date of, let's say, December 31st, 2020, something like that, so that for the rest of the year, that meeting is always going to show up on the upcoming meetings. And when it comes to your people that are just joining the organization for the first time, there's nothing magical about that date assignment. You could grant them access to those materials whenever you want to. So it's not like you would have to wait until actually December 31st, 2020 for them to access those materials. So yeah, I'd say if it's important to you to make sure that that's always going to appear in your upcoming meetings, then just assign a date way out in the future.
Great. Any other questions, Gina, at all that we've had come through? Or we just welcome everyone to share any other questions you might have on this topic, or if anybody else has a best practice that you've been using within OnBoard or just around this topic about recruiting and training and retaining, that's obviously would have to be simple in the chat form, but we definitely welcome that and enjoyed hearing how someone has been using the resources section for onboarding packets. I feel like hearing tips from other people can always be super helpful.
Yeah, we had a couple people that mentioned that, didn't they? I think that was a pretty popular idea.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like Kathy says they have consolidated materials from their orientation program as a presentation in the resources section. So great idea, Kathy.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just give another moment here. Any other questions at all?
Yeah, keep them coming, everybody. These have been some really good questions so far.
Exactly. Okay. Just give it another moment here, but okay, well, we just thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to join us about intentionally creating your best board. We really hope that you have found this helpful and just encourage you, if anything has piqued your interest or has got you brainstorming as far as how you might implement some of this and how OnBoard might serve you. I just speak for our whole team as your customer success managers and implementation managers. We're very happy to be a resource and a sounding board to help you to do that. So if no other questions at all, then I think we will, let's see. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you everyone so much for your time in joining us on our webinar. And we just appreciate your business and partnering with you. And we just wish you the best as you seek to grow in creating your best board. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.